All right. Hi. Welcome everybody to the Home Care Owners Corner. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. And today we are going to talk about exit planning. Now, what exactly is it? Why is it so important? And, the big question is, when should you start planning for an exit? The reality is we all come into business with a lot of hopes and dreams. And as our businesses grow, some of our goals change a little bit, depending on what's going on in the market and within our own personal lives and situations. But nobody really stops to think about what's going to happen next. We're not going to live forever. We're not vampires. Some of us may think we are, but that's a whole different conversation. And the fact is that as much as we'd love to have a family legacy, our kids don't always necessarily want our business. So what do we do? When do we plan? How do we get ready? Today, we have the honor of having Jennifer Ramos with us, and she's going to talk to us about all of these wonderful things, and we're just going to try to absorb as much as we can. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget all the normal YouTube stuff. Give this video a thumbs up if you got some useful information. Don't forget to subscribe. Only about 10% of you that are watching this are actually subscribed to the channel, and we'd like to see that number grow a little bit. And leave us a comment below. Let us know, before we get started, where are you in your business, and have you actually considered exit planning? All right. Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us. Tell us a little bit about you, and how is it that you're going to help us through this journey?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Julio. I really appreciate the time. Yes, so my name is Jennifer Ramos, and I am with M&A Business Advisors. And I also have my own firm, JR3 Consulting Group. I am a business broker, and I am a business exit strategist. And so home care essentially and initially is really near and dear to my heart. I used to be a home care owner. I owned and operated a Comfort Keepers franchise location in San Diego, actually 3 different territories, one in Coronado and 2 other franchise systems in Riverside County for several years. I say several, probably about 13 years. I had successful transitions out of those businesses. I did it on my own. I didn't really use a broker. I just kind of intuitively knew what I was doing somehow, got out of those businesses and opened my own private. So I have experience with being a franchisee and a private home care agency owner at the same time. I opened another one in Colorado and a staffing agency after I sold Comfort Keepers. And I quickly realized I was homesick, wanted to come back to California. So I sold those 2. And again, successful transactions, and came back to California and went into consulting full time. And so here I am today. So I've been a consultant for about, I guess it's been 6 years now. So, and a broker for 3. So yeah, and home care is very special to me because I had that experience, and I came to realize in my journey that we don't know what we don't know. And so I've dedicated my career now to educating business owners on what they should know right now to create a successful agency for themselves. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's awesome. So let me ask then. So, you mentioned you were successfully able to build and grow and sell franchises and private businesses. Is there a big difference in how you have to sell or transition out of, the 2, whether you're a franchise model or you're an independent owner?
I think the biggest difference, I mean, the principles are pretty much the same, but the biggest difference in transitioning out of a franchise versus the independent, it's a little harder because there's another barrier to entry for the buyer. They have to be approved by the corporate office, and sometimes corporate office, depending on which franchise system you're part of, is very strict, and it's very difficult to get approved by them. So it's harder to find a buyer. It just narrows the pool more when you're with the franchise system versus an independent. That's the biggest issue. That's the biggest difference.
All right. And now, one of the things I always try to work when I work with people, I tell them, look, day one, you want to start thinking about what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really hard for people to wrap their head around, because like I said before, nobody thinks about this. Nobody really worries about it until they've been in business for a while, and either their franchise contract is coming up and they just don't want to do it anymore, or they're burnt out, or maybe they've mismanaged their business and unfortunately use it as a cash register and try to live off of whatever's coming in. They run into cash flow problems. Those are the things that trigger a lot of times people thinking about transitioning. What are what's some advice you can give to somebody? Like, why should they start planning on this, no matter where they are? I don't care if they're a $10 million agency and they're setting up a corporate structure, or
Yeah.
if they're brand new and they're just starting to think about coming into the business.
Yeah, it's the biggest mistake a business owner could make, whether it's in this industry or any industry, truly. And the reason why is 100% of us are going to transition out of our businesses. All of
Right.
us are, just are. And whether it's within our control to transition out, or whether it's an extraordinary event that's pushing us to exit.
Right.
So I always say that and I think you've heard me say this, and maybe even some of your listeners right now have heard me say this. I'm repetitive with it because it's true. Having an exit plan is the best business strategy. It just is, because you're going to exit at some point, whether it's a year from now because you found out you're ill and you have to get out.
Right.
It's 20 years from now because you're ready to retire and you want to go right off into the sunset with your spouse or whomever. But I really do advocate that we want it to be on our terms. And a lot of times, statistically, when you look at the statistics of successful transactions that sell, it's daunting. The statistics the numbers don't lie. And I say this all the time, they just don't.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of the business owners just don't understand because they don't know what they don't know. And the statistics are it's daunting. I mean, honestly, 80% of businesses, I'll just drop a couple. 80% of businesses that are for sale right now won't sell. And they won't sell, and they'll stay listed, or they'll just be forced to liquidate because they're not ready. They're not buyer ready, and they're not attractive to a buyer, and they're just not sellable, frankly. And a lot of business brokers across the country, some of them will list businesses just to have the listing, but really shouldn't, because the mistake is they give the business owner the false hope that their business can sell, when really it just stays listed and listed and listed for months and months and months and months, and it just doesn't. It sits because it's not sellable. And so my mission is to educate people to think differently and have that kind of mindset shift, that they really should start their business from the time they open their doors with that exit in mind. And I truly think that that's why I was able to successfully exit mine, is because from the time I started, I knew about when I wanted to sell it, and I knew why I wanted to sell it. I knew what I wanted to do after I sold it. And I had them for over 10 years, and I still operated from the time I started with that goal in mind.
So what's something that, okay, like right now, I've been in this since 2015. What would you say to me right now I should start doing that? I may have done it, may have not done it, but what is something that anyone listening, anyone watching this should immediately do? What's like 2 or 3 action steps to start getting ready for the transition?
Okay, so I'm really kind of a holistic thinker. So what I would encourage you to do is step outside of the bubble of your business. And even us as consultants, Julio, we could do the same with our own business. Because at some point we're gonna, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
I mean, we got to have our own plan. But what I would say is just step outside of the bubble of your business and look at it with the lens of a buyer. Would you buy your own business?
Right.
Why or why not? And write down some of the key points that are coming to mind. Like, why wouldn't you want to buy your own business? And look at your business from the lens of an acquirer, because someone, even if you're thinking you're going to leave it to your kids, do you know that only 2% of people that want to leave it to the kids actually have a successful situation go down with the kids. So it's 2%. Like it's the
That's higher than I thought.
right? The failure rate is just insane. So
Right.
someone's going to take your baby, and if you're giving them an ugly baby,
Yes.
it's not desirable. Buyers want to, buyers are looking for very specific things, and especially in today's market because they're just more savvy.
You said specific things like what? Like give me a couple of examples.
They want to know that the first thing the buyer is going to ask you is, what's your quality of life?
Right.
As an owner, are you coming to work every single day? How many hours a day are you working as an owner? Are you stressed? Do you love your team? Do you love your product? They'll ask you those questions because they know that once you pass the baton to them, that's the life they're going to adopt.
Right.
So, so that's why I said, the first thing to do is really look at it from the eyes of a buyer. At what kind of life do you have? What kind of quality of life do you have? So they look for your quality of life as an owner.
Right.
They look for a business that's cash flowing, for sure.
Right.
Positive cash flow. Unfortunately, I get calls sometimes from companies that want to sell, whether it's home care or not home care is irrelevant, but they'll call and they want to sell, but their business is taking a loss every year.
Right.
That's not sellable. Nobody wants to buy a business that's taking a loss.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So your business needs to be cash flowing, quality of life for the owner, and a solid team. Having a really, really strong team in place, at least one or two key people that can run the business is important to them.
Right.
And systems and
Right.
policies and procedures in place that are actually followed and understood system-wide for
Right.
your company. Those are probably the main. Oh, and clean books, clean financials.
Right. All right. And now in home care specifically, what do you see is yeah, and I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. Like, what do you see is
I like fastballs, Julio. I can deal with fastballs. It's okay.
what do you see as some of the biggest hurdles that people have? And on the second part of that, is it easier to sell Medicaid or private pay?
Private pay.
Okay. How come?
Especially because private pay is more cash flowing. It's more, the margins are better.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's usually the answer I give to people that ask me. Like, oh, the margins are what they are. The numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
If you do have both, though, I'll add this. If you do have both a mixed bag of Medicaid and private pay, of course, we want to take care of the seniors that are on Medicaid, and I get that.
Correct.
And so do buyers. Just have a healthy mix, and I'd say 70-30 is a good healthy mix.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
We're on the same page with that.
Really?
I always tell people, that's the exact mix I tell everyone. 70% private, 30% Medicaid in order to maintain positive cash flow.
Absolutely. That's the bare minimum too.
Yeah.
80-20 is better and 90-10 is even better, obviously.
Yeah, I tell them 70-30 is, if you want to have minimal hiccups, anything over like 80-20, you don't want to deal with it. Just stay away from Medicaid at that point.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So, because that's especially from when I had my own time in franchising, doing that end of it, I used to just get these new owners and I would tell them all the time, like, look, it's exciting, but when it stops being exciting, then it becomes a business. So if you're either going to learn how to create yourself a high-paying job where you're a slave to the desk and you'll never be able to sell your business, or you're going to create something you enjoy that becomes profitable and it's easily transferable.
Yeah.
The only thing that, in my opinion, I never really thought of it until you mentioned it. I always try to teach people to keep their business completely pluck and chug. Completely.
What does that mean?
Oh, okay. Meaning that any single human being in your back office should be easily replaceable within 90 days.
I like it.
Yeah. If you have solid enough, not just policies and procedures, but SOPs to back
Yeah,
up your systems,
yeah. Hmm.
every single person, and that's really one of the big things I try to teach my own clients. I mean, we've shared a
Yeah,
couple of clients along the way. I
right.
stress that a lot. They don't always listen.
Yeah,
Can't help that.
yeah, yeah.
But, you know,
Like a turnkey,
creating, yeah,
like
it
creating a
absolutely should
turnkey.
be.
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
I know in I've never done to the extent of what you've done, but I've taken over agencies before, and
Hmm.
I've on the day of the sale, I've walked in, and you know, five of the people that were working there had guarantee employment clauses in the transaction, and they quit.
Yeah.
You know, I've had
Hmm.
3, 4 people walk out on me.
Hmm.
So, and that became a problem. That was my very first business purchase. That's
Yeah.
the exact scenario. We walked in, me and the old owner introduced, hey, listen, this is what's going on. Nice to meet
Yep.
you. Here's who I am. Here's, we're doing all the presentation. Everything was great.
Yeah.
The very day that the transaction was done, the owner
Hmm.
stayed on board for about 60 days with me, just to make sure everything went smoothly.
Hmm.
One day, me and her were sitting there. Everybody walked out at the end of the day. There was only one part-time scheduler that stayed with us, and they were plotting this. They were figuring it out. They didn't really like her. They thought they were sabotaging the deal,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. And that's when I learned everybody needs to be replaceable.
Yeah, and it's not
That's
to be like it's not a callous thing. It's
no,
just a
no, it's a
plan B.
strategy.
It's a
Yeah,
strategy, and it's
right.
really smart to have a plan B, and you do want
Hmm.
every department to be turnkey. So like,
Yes.
and I tell clients something similar, but how I frame it is, we want to be able to go and sit in the staffing department, pull an
Mhm.
SOP. I want to be able to
Yep.
go and sit in your organization and know what I'm doing from your
Exactly.
system and processes. And it's
Yes.
same with care management, same with the marketing, same with,
Yep.
all of it.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
Even your nurse.
Uh-huh.
Even
All of
the
it.
yeah,
Even you,
everything she needs to have an SOP. Oh no, absolutely.
even you
Well,
as the owner, that's where they miss also, is
yes.
they should document what they're doing in their day
Yep.
and create an SOP around what they're doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
The one of the well, actually, the more some of the more successful clients I've had.
Mm,
I have a gentleman right now that's a client of mine that we're going on our second go around with working with him.
hmm.
He works 10 hours a week. That's all.
That's awesome.
Everything else in his business is completely replaceable. He
Yeah.
has staff turnover. His time to 100% productivity, even for the more highly skilled jobs like
Mhm.
sales and nursing, they only have a time to 100% productivity of about 2 weeks
Yeah.
instead of 60 days, which is average in this industry, because
Yeah.
everything is so clearly spelled out. We worked very hard last year to make sure that every aspect of his business has clear policies, updated procedures, a
Yeah.
clear SOPs, videos, a full internal training platform that if somebody has a question, his whole office could be brand new and they can just go to the learning base
Right.
inside and take a look
You
at
know
how
what's
to do
wild?
everything.
You know what's wild about that is to really think about it because I always think about everything from a value add perspective.
Yeah.
You can ask for a higher multiple if you just have that one
Yes.
thing in place. Plus, your quality of life is so much richer.
Yes.
As a business owner, you're driving the bus and the bus isn't driving over you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's really interesting though, because that's one of the questions I ask when I'm vetting
Mhm.
clients, either consulting clients and or broker clients.
Right.
Is I'll ask them, tell me your dynamic. What's your quality of life? And then I
Yeah.
know if they're seller ready. If they're not seller ready, I'm very direct and I'll tell them, I'm sorry, you have a lot of work to do. I couldn't list
Right.
this if I wanted to because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste my time and any buyers that might even just come knocking at the door. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a big deal.
Exactly. So, and that's one of the things that whenever I work with clients, I always tell them if they haven't spoken to somebody to value their business, they need to. They,
It's huge. Yeah.
it even, even if they have zero intention of selling, they need that snapshot at any moment. Hey, I need to know if I were to sell today, this is what happens. If I get hit by a bus today,
Yeah,
what is my family going to be able to sell this for? You
exactly.
know, and it's
Well,
funny. I use the hit by a bus scenario because I've actually had a client that happened to.
mhm,
It was in a cold weather state. They were on their way to the office. Patch of ice. A truck hit a patch of ice, ran through a red light, hit them head on. They lived, but the family was completely lost because they had no clue where any of the
yeah,
documents were. We had just started working with them, and it's a nightmare. So
yeah. I
that's
mean, it
something
happens. It
crazy.
happens more often than people really
Yeah.
realize. Because we're kind
Yes.
of going about our business as business owners, and we're not thinking that
No.
illness is going to befall us or
Oh, of
divorce
course
because
not.
we were just happy and kumbaya with our spouse last
Yes.
year. You know what I mean? Like life happens to us, and so
Yes.
if we are holding, if we're business owners, we have a very solid obligation and responsibility to our families and ourselves and all the
Absolutely.
employees and the clients that we care
Yep.
for to know how to harvest all of the money out of our businesses and then tee it
Hmm.
off to the next, to the successor,
Yes.
for the continuing of the care for everyone.
Exactly.
And a lot of business owners just don't think along those lines, but I'm telling
No.
you right now, it's a huge mistake. And
Exactly.
when they're not thinking like that, it's 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 not good because then they're forced to when it's too late. And then they're
Well.
coming to someone like me, and then I'm telling
Hmm.
them either your business isn't worth anything or it's worth something, but it's worth way less than you're thinking as an owner
Yes.
of your mind. Because that
If
happens all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. They come in thinking I hear it all the time that where
Um,
people are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to sell it for $3-4 million. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen.
or
Look,
it might, but I mean,
not
where are
well
you basing that? Where are
where
you
they
basing
are,
that off of?
right?
You know?
My whole thing is, and this is always my shtick with people. It's very simple. Because transitioning a business out, a home care agency in particular, especially when in the wrong place. Unfortunately, I've been called a number of times to help people going through bankruptcy, divorce, like you said,
Yeah,
all of these things. Sometimes arrest,
yeah,
some really oddball things, and to
yeah,
transition out a client base, to transition out, all the other aspects of the business. It is very, very difficult and very costly. And this is something that whenever I start with clients, I always tell them, look, it's much cheaper to hire you, you in particular, to come in and say, get you ready. Hey, here's a snapshot of your business. Here's what you need to have in place to
yeah.
get your business ready for transition. Than it is, that's cheaper than hiring me to come in and spend 3 months transitioning you out of your business the hard way, because now you have to figure out what are you going to do with all your clients. What do it's not as always as simple as, hey, calling up the agency down the street. Look, I got 40 clients for you. You want them?
Yeah.
It's never that simple. There's, documentation you have to maintain. There's, the discharge transfer planning. There's you have to be careful of HIPAA, all of this other wonderful stuff. And it's crazy. It's
Well, it's
absolutely
interesting too, Julio, because like I'm not a nurse or anything. I come from like a healthcare kind of background, but from an
right.
administrative side of things, like
Right.
social work. So the thing that's interesting is I do think of our businesses as and our clients like
Mm-hmm.
it's like healthcare for your business. It's like
It
making
is.
evaluation or getting a broker opinion of value, just some sense of what your company might be worth right now
Right.
is so empowering because
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know that other brokers do this, but I do because I guess I'm a consultant. I'll go through the valuation and show them exactly how I came to this range of
Yeah.
value, most probable selling price, and then I show them if this isn't a number that you were expecting or want or desire, then you need to figure out what the gap is. So if your
Yeah.
valuation comes at 500,000 or $1 million in probable selling price, but you really want five, then this is what you need to do to
Yeah.
build up this area and these areas and then work towards that. And
Right.
kind of like I liken it to going to like a doctor appointment.
Right.
If you're not feeling well, you're going to go to a doctor appointment to go get diagnosed.
Hmm.
The doctor's going to give you a prescription to treat that illness, and then you take your prescription and you walk it, you know what I mean? And then you walk that path of health. Your
Right.
business is the same. There's no difference, except that
Oh,
your
none.
business, your whole future is tied up in your business. All of your
Yeah.
wealth, 90% of our wealth is in our business.
Right.
And so if our business is sick, it's not worth anything. It's going to die.
Exactly.
So I feel like it's very similar to like healthcare, like how we are with our bodies is how we
Hmm.
should be with our businesses.
Right.
Um, I'm serious because I've seen so many sick businesses that it's just, and it's
Oh,
hard.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. There's a lot of like secondary things that, because I've worked with a number of business brokers over the years, and
Mhm.
then there's also the secondary things that a lot of people buying a business don't think about. What are the relationships, the marketing relationships that exist? What sort of recruiting relationships exist?
Yeah.
If you have an agency and all relationships are dependent on a particular marketer that's been with the agency for the last 6 years, what happens when I take over
Yeah.
and the referral partners think that the business is owned by the marketer?
Yeah.
Because that happens quite a bit. Or the caregivers only think there's one face to this entire agency, and
Yeah.
it's the scheduler. So there's a lot of, I've seen um staff transitions, and this is why, again, I'm a big believer in making everybody replaceable
Yeah.
and building a lot of depth in the agencies. you know I've seen an office manager quit or get fired, forget a sale, just on a regular, through normal everyday activity, and
Mhm.
the agency lose 40% of their client base literally within a week.
Totally.
Yeah.
There should not
So
be employee dependent. There should be no employee dependency on any
right.
one employee. And the business needs to really be its own entity, its own life force.
Correct.
Everybody in it is a player in it, but it's its
Right.
own life force. So from a branding perspective,
Hmm.
it needs to stand on its own. And so to
Correct.
your point, everybody does need to be replaceable. And I love that because they do. I mean, it's not a callous thing. It just is,
No, no. Look.
to keep the ship going, you know what I mean? So it's kind of,
Hmm.
it's really important. I'm telling you, it's so
Yeah, no,
important.
I look, it's the way I explain it to
Yeah,
every client that I've ever had when they tell me, "Oh,
it's
but
smart.
they're my staff, they're like family." It's like, okay, well,
That's
here
fine.
here's the question you have to ask yourself. If, let's say, I'm your employee, okay? And yeah, we have a great relationship, our families know each other, we go out to Sunday picnics. Who cares? Whatever it is you guys do. All right. All of a sudden, your business fails.
Yeah.
What happens? I'm going to go get another job. I'm not going to financially support you like you financially supported me for all the years I worked for you. So if you're putting that one staff member
Yeah.
ahead of everything else, you're saying they're more important than you, more important than your family, more important than every family member of those caregivers that work for you,
Hmm.
that are dependent on your business's success for them to eat.
Hmm.
You're saying that that one employee is more important than every vulnerable elderly person in your charge that depends on having that quality care you've gotten them used to, that
Right.
depends on that continuity of care if they have cognitive issues.
Yeah.
So you need to worry about the 500 moving parts, not the one cog. So you have to be able to keep that machine going. And that's
Yeah.
why everybody needs to be, like I said, replaceable.
Well, the other thing too is that relationships don't remain the same.
No.
They change. And
Yep.
there's a lot of times I get calls from folks that are, in partnerships too, that
Hmm.
everything was
Oh,
kumbaya a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now
hmm.
both the partners are at odds. It's
Yep.
ugly. There's
And it's
attorneys
ugly.
involved. It's
Yep.
bad. Like relationships change. And
Yes.
so, yeah, so always have a plan B for sure.
Yeah. And
Um,
and with partnerships, I mean, we can do a whole
oh my
show on
gosh,
just
that's a
that.
whole
Just
other jam.
Contracts need to be well thought out, extremely detailed, and blessed by an attorney
Yep.
every
Buy-sell
single
agreement.
time.
Every
And
partnership should have a buy-sell agreement, period, the end.
yes, oh, absolutely. You know,
100%.
first right of refusal,
All of it.
and but it goes beyond that. Because I've seen exactly the scenario where the only people that win are the lawyers. Look, that's it. When that partnership goes bad, everything is great when you're sitting around the kitchen table with your buddy going, I think we can do this.
Yeah.
You know, versus because there's no money in it. Now, when we're talking about, 8, 10, $12 million business between the two of you,
Hmm.
money changes. Money changes the conversation
Well,
a lot
roles
more than
change
people
too.
think.
Well, and roles, like, what are you doing for this money?
Oh,
What
yes.
what participation do you have in the business? Now it starts getting
Yeah,
tit for tat, like, well, I'm working more than you are. I'm entitled to
right.
this. Like, yeah, there's a lot that go on with partnerships. We probably should
Yep.
do a partnership segment because
Oh,
I'm serious.
we could.
It's a whole other ball of wax.
As a matter of fact, we could.
I
That's
mean, whatever
I
information,
yeah,
yeah.
I teach a webinar on it at least once a year.
Oh
So
gosh, it's so
yeah,
powerful.
where I mean, I typically do it. Like I said, I typically typically a private thing. There's a couple of brokers that I work with that because we go into a lot of detail. Because like your former healthcare, I was a paralegal for many years, so
Hmm.
I used to
Oh,
draft these partnership
agreement.
agreements, these contracts. I I can
Oh, I didn't
we
know
can go
that.
in.
That's
Oh yeah,
wild. Ooh, you
yeah,
have a lot you can add value to on that discussion for sure.
yeah. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to it. And one of the things, it's an exercise that I actually go through you know, I don't really work with a lot of brand new agencies. I used
Hmm.
to at one point when I was more involved in franchising,
Hmm.
but mostly I work with established agencies. But
Hmm.
whenever I've worked with partners, I always
Hmm.
run them through a very simple exercise. Okay, and for all of you watching, this will save you on average $8,000 to $10,000 in legal fees. Okay, sit down independently, however many partners there are, and write down one list of what your expectations are of labor. What do you expect to be responsible for? Then write down what are your expectations financially. Well, how much do you think you're putting in, and how much do you think you deserve at different stages of the business? Okay. Because one of the biggest fights that I've seen with partners, even when they have a somewhat okay partnership agreement that they paid
Yeah.
attorneys for,
Hmm.
they always leave out what actually qualifies as a business expense. Okay. So, what I mean by that is if you and I are in business
Hmm.
and we say, all right, profits are defined as follows.
Hmm.
Great. Does your salary count as a business expense, or is that profit? How about the fact that you wanted to hire, your cousin Bob, and I wanted to hire my Aunt Lupe? You know, who in here is what's qualifying? I'm bringing these people on. Is it our staff or is it my staff and your staff? Do I have authority to fire your people if I need to? Like where is it that all of this division comes in?
Hmm.
And at what point do we divide the profits, the earnings? Should we divide it by two because there's two of us?
Yeah.
Or are we going to do the smart thing and divide it by three
Hmm.
because it's one part for me, one part for you? How are we going to reinvest if we're both walking away with all the profits at the end of the month?
Yeah. The other thing is, like, what if one of you dies? What then? What happens?
Death,
Does it go to the
divorce,
spouse?
illness.
Does the
Yep,
spouse? There's
yep.
just so many
There's
ways to
so much that
slice it.
goes on.
There's a lot that goes on with it.
Yep.
That'd be kind of interesting to have a whole, well, you do it once a year, you said.
Yeah, I do. I typically do it once a year.
That's good.
Usually right around Q4.
Okay.
Um, just actually around this time of year, right before.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that, yeah, I would love to have you on board for that
Oh my
conversation.
God, I would
We could
love it.
actually we could do just a free webinar for people.
Yeah, I think that would be great because it's just shedding light on stuff. It's kind of shedding light on things that they're not thinking of
Right. So
before it
let's so
before it
there you
happens.
go. You all heard it. We're gonna do sometime in the next 6 weeks or so, six
Yeah,
to
I'm
eight
in it.
weeks.
Yeah,
We're going to do a webinar, free webinar for everybody. Stay tuned for information on that, on all about partnerships, what to keep in mind, what's going to screw you over, and how to
yeah.
protect your assets and your family. All right, from a non-attorney point of view.
Yes,
All right.
yes, yes. And
Yeah.
actually case studies. There's like so many
Oh,
case studies.
there's tons. All right. So before we wrap it up, give
Are we
me.
wrapping it up?
Are
Oh, that's
we?
so
Oh,
bad.
yeah, yeah. We're almost an hour
Darn
in.
it. Okay, I was having fun.
Yeah. All right. So here, and don't worry, we can do plenty of these. I have no issues with that. So
Julio, we should do a podcast.
we should. We
I'm
should.
really serious.
Let's
We'll talk
I
about
am
that
too. Let's
later.
talk about that
Yeah, after
after
we're done.
we do
Okay.
this.
All right,
All
stay
right. So
focused.
here is, give us 3 actionable steps right now that
Okay.
somebody, no matter where they are in their business, that people need to take immediately. Like they just finished watching us. What are the 3 actionable steps that they should walk away with?
Okay. There's just so many, but 3? Okay.
Yeah, top 3.
Top 3. Shift your mindset and start thinking with the end in mind. That's
Okay.
absolutely number 1. You absolutely have to do that. And the action item behind that is sit down with a piece of paper, think about 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what does the future look like for you, and work
Right.
back from there. Okay. And write out what goals you want for your life in this business after you transition out of it. Because at some point you're going to.
Right.
So just start thinking with the exit in mind and work backward from there. Okay.
Okay.
So that's one thing, and start writing down what it is you need to do. The other thing I would highly suggest is you also start looking at your business from the outside in. So from an outside perspective, what's attractive about your business? Write that down. And what's a problem with your business? Are your financials a mess? Is your bookkeeping a mess? Do you even know how to read a P&L? Do you know what a balance sheet is for?
Right.
I mean, really start sitting down and drilling on what it is you think you need to improve in your business, write it out, and start focusing on that and double down on those areas. And if you don't know how to do something, seek out people like Julio, me. I mean, there's a bunch of coaches out there. Seek out help,
Yep.
and try to get as much free advice as you possibly can to
Mhm.
try to bridge those gaps for yourself. So that's the other action item I would do. The other thing, gosh, what's the third? That kind of encompasses a lot, actually, because that alone is going to trigger so much. The other thing I would encourage you to do is get an opinion of value on your business, because I don't, and I can do them for a fee, or I can do them very quickly just over the phone by asking you a few key questions, and I can give you an idea of what your range of value is. If you want a formal one, it's an 8-page document that I could give you, and I actually show you and go through the areas of your business that I think you need to focus on. So it's a little bit more in depth. But bottom line is, we don't know where we're going if we don't know where we are. And if you
Right.
have no idea what your business is worth today, and God forbid you got a diagnosis in 6 months that's not good, and you have to sell your business, you at least know what is going on with your company. You at
Yep.
least know where you're at. Sell it in today's market. And so I would suggest everybody get a valuation of some kind every single year, at minimum every 2 years, because a
Right.
lot happens in our business through the course of a year. A lot happens in our business through the course of a 2-year period. And I highly recommend that. Those are the 3 actionable things I would say to take away and do today.
All right. Fix your mindset. The action item number 2 is take a look at what's going right in your business
And
and
what's
what do
going
you
wrong?
need to fix.
Yep.
Yep. And action item number 3 is get an annual evaluation on what it's worth, an
Yes.
opinion.
An opinion.
Now, I got to tell you, I've run, operated, and owned since oh God, since about 2012 now,
Mm,
about 5 or 6 agencies, and I've helped start and grow close to 100 agencies since 2015. Those evaluations are priceless. There's two things I always tell everyone that they should do: get your business measured for get a cost evaluation, and do a territory analysis. That's something that I just always
yeah,
push.
yeah,
Demographics shift all the time, and
yep.
you need to know, where people live and everything else. So right there, reach out to Jennifer, get yourself an appointment with her, make sure that you understand what your business is worth. If you're going to call her for a free guesstimate, knock yourself out. All her information will be in the description box below. But I highly suggest investing a few bucks out of your business to understand exactly what your business is worth. So this way you can have everything lined up and start planning out how you're going to fix it and increase the value of it year over year. It's Q4 at the time of this recording. We are in October. Look, this is a
Oh
perfect
my
time
God.
to do it anyway. It's, the year's almost over. Get those
Yeah.
last tax write-offs in, and get it done, and at least know how to prepare your business for tomorrow. 2024 is right around the corner. And even if you're watching us in 24, whatever it is, the next year is right around the corner. The older we get, the faster time runs. So make sure you know what it's worth. So make sure you have a solid plan. That business valuation and a few other things along the way are your roadmap. And like I said, we could talk about this forever. So
We could. I know it's
yes,
so
yes.
crazy. I mean, honestly, because this is like a high level kind of discussion about
Oh
this,
yeah.
but I'm telling you, I mean, there's so much to this. We could do like an 8-day series. It's just what,
Yes. Oh,
like,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for being with us and joining us. We would love to have you back often. The
Yeah, I would love
conversation
it,
would be
Julio.
great.
Yeah.
And, thank you all for watching us. This has been Home Care Owners Corner, formerly known as the Morning Meeting. All right. Once again, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Share this with other business owners. A lot of valuable information here. You're not seeing this in a whole lot of other places. This is very home care specific from two home care experts. All right. Thank you all for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.